AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm really good.
Inside of our Police, Fire, Military, and Families Facebook group, I've been trying to pull a little bit more faith-based content anytime that I can, because it's something that is really great for me, but it's also something that I know that a lot of people in the group really like when I post as well. And it got me thinking about how there's so many first responders who throughout their career, they will kind of flip-flop on their faith. And there's a lot of people who might find God or get closer to God. And then there's others who just turn away altogether. And I thought that we could just talk about that today.
Yeah, and I think because you see such bad things all the time, and you're always seeing the worst of people, to where it kind of tries your faith and it tests you over time, to where I think that's a lot of the reasons why you see people flip-flop, because you go to, unfortunately a kid having some severe injuries and passing away, or some tragic incident, and it's funny because we've watched some movies recently to where you start seeing like people start going down that rabbit hole, but then you come out of it with that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I was talking to somebody this week, and he was well, first he sent me a picture of a really bad traffic accident, and he told me that it was a female behind the wheel and she was drunk driving, and we got to talking about it later, and then he was telling me how one of the officers that he was with asked him why he didn't bring out his emergency trauma kit in his personal vehicle. He was doing like a weird side gig where, he's still it's very strange the way that other states do their contracting, but he is a police officer, has his gun and everything, says police on their shirts, and they help with major construction zone sites on like highways and different roads and stuff. So they use their personal vehicles and they equip them with lights and sirens. So an officer had asked him, like, why didn't you bring out your trauma kit? And he said, well, I have that I bought on my own for emergencies with other officers, not with like somebody who made the decision to drink and drive. And so we kind of had a little bit of a morality conversation around that, because for me personally, the older I get, the sanctity of life just becomes so precious to me, regardless of the circumstances. And so I couldn't stand by and know that I had something that perhaps might be able to help somebody during that time. And then for him, I'm sure based on the circumstances and the belligerence of that individual and his experience, that's what made him a little bit more callous to the circumstances. And so it was just very interesting to see those dynamics of how strongly I felt of, and it was a very healthy conversation, but I could never not provide something that I had that could help to aid in that circumstance, whereas he just like absolutely not.
So, and I think it's having this understanding of, like, for me personally, this is something is, there's the possibility that you could try performing those life extending measures and to utilize those trauma kit or something like that on someone else. I know a lot of officers, especially nowadays, are carrying tourniquets on them. And typically you carry the tourniquet on yourself for yourself, not for others, or it's for yourself or for one of your partners. But typically it's like if you have one on you, like that's for you in case something tragic happens. And I know, and just like if I were to go up to another officer and they had one on them that they needed a tourniquet, like I would use their tourniquet on them, not the one that I carry on them. And so in saying that, that's where I think we can set ourselves up to where, okay, If I have this tourniquet that's specifically on me, or this trauma kit that I carry around with me, I have one for you and I, and then I have one for the public. And the reason you set yourself up like that is, one, because ultimately we want to be able to help preserve life and save life as much as we can, but you don't want to sacrifice the need of what you have for yourself too.
It was interesting because that conversation led us to another one where I had shared with him that anytime that I hear a motorcycle going by, whether I'm driving or outside on our property, I always say a silent prayer of like, please be careful. And you recently said, I don't know if it was a prayer in your mind, but you said out loud, like, oh man, I hope that they ride careful or something like that. And so I think that when you hear and let's say that you're in that circumstance and you hear that and you hear somebody who just takes off on their motorcycle really fast. So there could be somebody like me who is saying that silent prayer, but then there can also be somebody who says something like, that fucking idiot shouldn't be driving that fast down that road when we have so many people that die on it every single year.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's all a perspective-based thing, to where there's, and I understand both sides. Like, ultimately, I think you said it perfectly, is, we want to, like, life is so important. Life is such a honor and a blessing to be able to own and possess and be able to share in this world, to where we need to treasure everyone's life just as much as we treasure ours.
Yeah, and so psychologically, there's this concept, and it's called meaning-making theory. And so it basically means that humans try to reconcile any kind of life events with their own core beliefs. And I think that goes perfectly along the lines of what we've been discussing, because when a traumatic or a morally conflicting incident takes place and it doesn't fit somebody's worldview, then they're forced to either reconstruct the meaning so you can draw closer to faith, or the other side of that is to experience meaning collapse. So you're pulling away further from faith. And
I think with saying that is, you're going to have those times, especially in your life, of having that strain, that angst against you, saying like, how could God do something like this? How can my spirituality align with such a tragic incident? Well, it's ultimately, that has nothing to do with it, and it's having that understanding for yourself.
I've put down some reasons why I believe that people will turn towards God more than away from him, and especially as a first responder. And the first is that you face mortality on a regular basis. And another here is that you find that you need peace after a traumatic call. You might see miracles up close. You have a desire for purpose, and finding community in church. And church doesn't necessarily have to be a brick and mortar building that you attend, right? Church can be so many different things nowadays. I think these are all reasons why somebody might be pushed more towards their faith and pulled away from it.
I think, so I'm looking back over my career. I've been through some pretty tragic incidents and different aspects of just the worst of mankind and the best of mankind. And there's one thing, I had a chaplain early on in my career give me a Bible, and it's a New Testament Bible. It's one of those little small ones that are like 3 inches by 3 inches, like very small. I've kept that in my vest my entire career, and I still carry it in there. And I'm not saying I'm opening it up and I'm reading it or anything like that. It's something that I've always kept with me, and it's just interesting. I haven't really even considered it and thought about it, but it's something that I've always kept within my vest as almost like a good luck charm per se.
Yeah, and I think there might be other reasons why somebody might be pushed away from their faith. And I think that when you're in a situation to where you witness senseless tragedy over and over again, it might make you question humanity, which could also make you question faith.
Yeah, I think when you're seeing these human acts that people are doing against others, it starts raising that question of why can anything support this evil that's in the world? And I think, and we've talked about this recently, is when, we watch that documentary, and it's really interesting to see is it's not that your faith or God is creating this problem. There's the evil in the world that creates that. And I think that's where that divide comes into play.
I recently saw a gentleman who was talking about how what a gift it is at the end of the day to be exhausted from all of the challenges that you face that God placed before you throughout the day.
That's really good. I like that.
I really like that. And, I think sometimes repeated trauma can lead to this belief that God isn't listening, especially when you are a first responder seeing these types of things over and over again.
And I think it's something, and we talked with one of our friends on this too. It's the mindset and the difference of saying, well, were they placed in my way, or were they given to me because God knew I could overcome them?
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.